Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
We're heading in the wrong direction. This is a view of how we expect that we can control women's bodies and their health care choices. That's frightening to me.
I do need to understand what I'm going to be seeing and what had happened and draw my own conclusion to accepting it.
In Canada, we are notorious for having really low municipal voter turnout, which is quite ironic because it's municipal government that actually is closest to the people.
Thanks for joining us. We'll bring you the latest on the overturning of Roe v. Wade in the United States in just a moment. But first, it's the end of the first week of a coroner's inquest examining the death of Delilah Blair. She was an inmate at the Southwest Detention Center in Windsor when she died by suicide. Her mother, Sylvia McIntyre, spoke with CBC News about how she's feeling sitting through hours of testimony about her daughter's death. And today we're learning new details about why a defibrillator wasn't immediately brought to Blair's cell. The CBC's Jason Vio brings us the details.
Day 5 of the Delilah Blair inquest inside of a hotel conference room here in Windsor is shedding more light on the circumstances around her death. Today we heard from a registered nurse. Matthew Salatsky was part of the healthcare team that rushed to Blair's cell a few minutes after 8 p.m. on May 21st, 2017. He says there are 11 defibrillators, also known as AEDs, inside the jail, but he testified nobody brought one that night. Paramedics were the first to bring an AED to try and revive Blair, and that was 12 minutes after she was found unresponsive.
Very hurtful, just to learn some of the stuff that I had learned.
It's been 5 years since this all happened, and her mother, Sylvia McIntyre, says she couldn't bring herself to watch the security camera footage until last night. There was no camera inside of Blair's cell, so all we could see was video from the common area inside the women's mental health unit. The most difficult part for McIntyre so far?
Knowing that my daughter wanted me, and I wasn't there.
The two were very close. McIntyre says Blair would always call to check in, to talk about the good times and the bad, her addiction to crack cocaine and other mental health issues. When she hadn't heard from her in 5 weeks, she knew something was wrong. The jury saw this inmate request form that said, "Can I please phone my mother, because I need someone to talk to. Please and thank you." It's one of 2 she made while she was there in April and May, awaiting sentencing on a robbery charge. As you can see, the reply section wasn't filled out, so it's unclear what action, if any, was taken by jail staff.
My daughter was going to tell me something, and I'll never hear those words from her. You know, it seemed to me she was silenced for some reason.
Blair was an Indigenous woman of Cree ancestry. A big part of this inquest has been highlighting the lack of cultural supports available to Blair at the time. No Indigenous programming, no access to elders, and no Native inmate liaison officer.
To not recognize the need to understand or acknowledge that Indigenous inmates or women that find themselves in custody have different needs that are a better solution to what we've seen happen just disregards everything we've been talking about, everything we know, everything commissions have told us.
For McIntyre, she hopes some kind of wake-up call comes of this inquest.
Stop doing this to our people. You know, there has to be training, there has to be understanding and humanity for our people, and not another girl goes out this way.
An inquest is required by law when an inmate dies in custody. Closing submissions are expected next Thursday, and after that, the jury will come back with recommendations to help prevent similar deaths in the future. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Turning now to the major news south of the border. The U.S. Supreme Court today struck down long-standing constitutional protections for abortion. The ruling has infuriated supporters of abortion rights and prompted political leaders of all stripes, including U.S. President Joe Biden, to comment on it. The CBC's Chris Glover reports from Washington.
Some were jubilant when the decision was announced.
So for the older generation of pro-lifers to see this today, I'm so grateful for them and their perseverance.
Others devastated.
They are not pro-life, they're pro-hypocrisy. pro-democracy, pro-birth, and pro-control. All they really care about is controlling and suppressing women.
Learning the U.S. Supreme Court had struck down Roe v. Wade, the ruling that legalized abortion across the country 50 years ago. With today's landmark decision, abortion immediately became illegal in several states where anti-abortion laws had been drafted in anticipation of the decision. Abortion is now expected to be banned or severely restricted in more than 20 states. President Joe Biden spoke to the nation, calling it a sad day for America and the court.
The consequences and the consensus of the American people, core principles of equality, liberty, dignity, and the stability of the rule of law demand that Roe should not have been overturned.
Biden said he would do what he could to protect abortion in states where it is now illegal. He also urged Americans outraged by today's ruling to vote in the midterm elections in November. Congress has the authority to make abortion legal nationwide, something the president himself cannot do.
Reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November.
Recent polls show around 60% of Americans oppose overturning Roe versus Wade. Democrats are expected to try to capitalize on that sentiment. Many Republicans support today's ruling, insisting it's about protecting the sanctity of life.
This great nation can now live up to its core principle, that all are created equal, not born equal, created equal.
In his concurring opinion, conservative Justice Clarence Thomas said the court should now reconsider past rulings on same-sex marriage and contraception. Protests are expected to last especially through the weekend, but with emotions running high on both sides of the abortion debate, the president was today calling for peace through the weekend. Chris Glover, CBC News, Washington.
In Michigan, abortions are still legal, but only because a law from 1931 is being temporarily blocked. That law bars abortion without exceptions in Michigan. Governor Gretchen Whitmer says the court has put a temporary hold on the law, but it's not final and it's being challenged. Meanwhile, reaction in Windsor today. Our Chris Ensing spoke with Pat Papadeus. She organized a women's march to Washington in 2017, a protest for women's rights.
First of all, I think we have to recognize that it's going to disproportionately impact people. People who are well off and want to have an abortion will find a way to get one, and hopefully safely. It's going to definitely disproportionately impact racialized minorities, folks in poverty who can't access ways and means. You know, I'm of the generation that remembers when abortion was regulated in Canada. So I'm of that generation that remembers my young friends having to go at any means possible to do what they needed to do. So this is what we're talking about, and this is going to harm lives. And I'm saddened, I'm angry, and I feel a lot of despair, and I think that the United States of America and the people of the United States are heading in the very wrong direction.
When you think about the people that you met at that march and who were with you along your side that day, are there any people or conversations that you reflect on at a moment like this for those that do live on that side?
You know, it's really interesting. First of all, I remember the joy when we met up with women and others and people on the march, and they knew we were from Canada. There was that solidarity, that sense that these issues and these important causes transcend those types of boundaries. So that's one thing. And I mean, we're with them today. I mean, the fact that we're reacting like that here, although it's not necessarily personally impacting us here, I think says a lot to that relationship and to that bond that we have and to that sense that we formed when we joined them on that march.
Today marks 4 months until Ontarians head back to the polls for the third time in just over a year. And this time, they'll be voting for municipal governments and school trustees. Carrie Breen is on this story for us and joins us now. Carrie, how are the local races shaping up so far?
Katerina, no matter how voters cast their ballots, we're in for a big shakeup of the local political landscape. That's because there's a growing number of local mayors who have decided to hang up their chains of office. The mayors of Amherstburg, LaSalle, and Kingsville have all said that they aren't running this time around. And now Tom Bain in Lakeshore says he's strongly considering another run, but hasn't made a final decision yet. Mayor Drew Dilkens in Windsor sent us a statement. It said in part that there will be plenty of time this summer to contemplate the future, including his potential candidacy in the 2022 municipal election.
Carrie, for those municipalities without incumbent candidates, how could that affect those races?
That's a question I put to Professor Lydia Milgen, who teaches political science. She said it could drum up a bit more interest among the candidates.
That's been my experience, especially even at the municipal level, when we don't have a shoe-in or somebody that is perceived to be a solid bet. Then people who might have been considering it in the past, but just didn't put their name forward in the past, might be more likely and more willing to put their names out there. And so I expect that there'll be quite a lot more candidates vying, not just for the mayor's seats, but also for councillor positions.
And those mayors who are not running this time around, what are they saying about why they're stepping aside?
DiCarlo told me this decision was all about family. He says he didn't really realize how little family time he had available until the pandemic meant that everyone was all at home at the same time.
Really, it's just a personal time for me to want to spend more time with my family. When I started back in 2014, what I tell people is my children were children, and 8 years later, they're adults. I've got a mother I want to help out with, and another 4 years with the commitment of 2 full-time jobs is a bit much, I think. And so I'm just looking for more time for family.
Nelson Santos is also looking forward to more time with loved ones, and he's actually leaving his post early. He's becoming the CAO of the township near the Greater Toronto area. And Mark Bondi was unavailable for an interview.
And Carrie, do we have a lot of candidates who are stepping up to try and fill these mayoral seats?
Right now, no. While nominations have been open since May, only a handful of people have come forward to register as a candidate. Mayoral candidates so far in the open races include former Kingsville Deputy Mayor Tamara Stomp, current Amherstburg Councillor Michael Prue, and the Deputy Mayor of LaSalle, Crystal Meloche.
And Carrie, Windsor, Essex had a really low voter turnout in the provincial election. Are there any indications so far as to how much attention this race might capture?
When I spoke with Professor Milgen, she said that Canadian municipal election races in general don't seem to translate into good turnout. And there's also other factors to consider.
There's a lot going on. We've had COVID, we've had lots of elections lately. So unless there's some really interesting open races, I suspect that voter turnout will probably remain low. And again, unless there's something to really motivate people and get them to exercise their franchise.
And there's plenty of more time for candidates to join the race. Nominations close on August 19th, and those elections are on October 24th.
Thanks for that, Carrie. CBC's Carrie Breen. Premier Doug Ford's new cabinet is in place. Most of the core ministers from the previous cabinet are keeping their jobs, but there are some notable changes, including Ford's decision to appoint his nephew to cabinet. Our Queen's Park senior reporter Mike Crawley has the highlights.
Walking out in blazing sunshine, Ontario's new cabinet. It's a lot like the old cabinet. 2/3 of the ministers now hold the same post they had before the election.
As Premier and President of the Council and Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs of the Province of Ontario.
The biggest cabinet promotion? Sylvia Jones takes over as Health Minister and Deputy Premier.
We've made a lot of commitments and we're going to fulfill that because we need to make sure that our healthcare system is ready for whatever comes its way.
Jones was Solicitor General in the previous government. She oversaw the COVID-19 vaccine rollout and took heat for closing playgrounds and giving police carding powers in the third wave. The most eyebrow-raising new appointment to cabinet? The Premier's nephew.
I, Michael Douglas Ford.
The 28-year-old rookie MPP becomes Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism.
Whoever you are, wherever you come from, that you're welcome in Ontario, and you'll be given the opportunity to come here and to live, work, and play.
The 30-member cabinet includes 7 people of color and 7 women.
This is the first time we've ever seen the PC caucus have black MPPs and a black woman on cabinet, and so I know this is opening many doors, and it's just challenging those narratives and stereotypes and breaking down these barriers.
This will be the biggest cabinet Premier Doug Ford has ever presided over. One of the added posts, a new associate minister responsible for housing.
We need to build more homes. We need to build more attainable homes. It's not a problem that will be easily solved.
2 notable names Ford dumped from his cabinet. Lisa MacLeod is out. The longtime MPP for Nepean issued a statement saying she's taking time off to improve her physical and mental health. Also, Sault Ste. Marie's Ross Romano is no longer a minister. The new cabinet won't hold its first meeting until sometime next week, and there's still no word on when the legislature will be called back for a throne speech and a budget. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And as Mike mentioned, the Premier named a member of his own family to cabinet. And we haven't found an example of that ever happening before. Lorenda Redekop has more on reaction to what many are calling nepotism.
Michael Ford is the only minister who could be saying Uncle Doug at the cabinet table. Online, people immediately called it nepotism.
How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
The new minister and first-time MPP denies that.
I completely dismiss that. I've had the honor of serving on the Toronto District School Board, serving on Toronto City Council in one of the most diverse communities in one of the most diverse cities in the world.
Great to see you.
The Premier also stands behind his pick.
Well, he's very, very qualified, 10 years of political experience.
50K is not okay. During the swearing-in, a small group of protesters demanded the government shorten the wait list for children with autism to get care. Here's how one of them reacted.
That's what this government does. They help advance their friends and their donors and their family, obviously. So it's not shocking. Is he qualified?
Michael Ford has been criticized before for benefiting from his family name. On City Council, he continued a Ford dynasty, taking over in the seat that had been held by another uncle, the late Rob Ford. Michael Ford was 22 at the time, then the youngest person elected to council, now 28.
There are plenty of people, people of color, in Ford's caucus that could take that position, and he chose to appoint his nephew. And as we all know, the qualifications there are dubious.
But another cabinet minister reappointed today doesn't see an issue.
I like Michael. He's a great guy. He's a diligent worker. I think he proved himself at Toronto City Council, and I'm really looking forward to working with him.
The Premier's office confirms that just like last time, ministers' mandate letters will not be made public. The CBC is still fighting to have them released from the previous Ford administration. The case is headed to the Supreme Court of Canada. It means that, at least for now, we won't find out what the priorities are for Michael Ford or any other ministers. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
There's a live look outside there. We do have another heat event coming this weekend. Temperatures in the low 30s, both Saturday and Sunday. Dahlia will be here after the break with more on that. Plus, later in the show, drawing in buyers with tacos? How some realtors are getting creative. Stay with us. Dahlia Ashby is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Dahlia, we had those high temperatures earlier in the week, then a bit of a reprieve, but now we got to brace ourselves yet again.
That's right. It's about to get hot, humid, and muggy. I'm sorry to break it to you, but I'll have all the tips on how to stay hydrated and work up with those temperatures. But first, so tomorrow is going to be a beautiful day. It's a hot day. You can have a barbecue, enjoy it. And then on Sunday, we'll get into a bit. There's a risk of strong thunderstorms, daytime highs trending as you head into your work week. Current temperature right now in Windsor, 30 degrees, the hot spot in the area, 29 in Kitchener, and Chatham-Kent, 25 degrees. And with that humidity, it feels like 33 in Windsor, Sarnia 33, London, it feels like 31. Now, there is a heat warning in effect for the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It will feel like mid-30s, so make sure you're staying hydrated. Windsor and Toronto, that heat warning is in effect. And as you look at tonight, well, clear skies for the most part. Saturday, that cloud cover starts to kick in a little bit. As you head into Sunday, then you will start to see a little bit of that precipitation making its way through, but a dry commute on Monday. Look at that beautiful evening as you head home after work. Tonight, temperatures will drop to low 16, a nice cool summer evening, so you get a break before you head into tomorrow's temperatures. Tomorrow, Saturday, it's going to feel like 34 with that humidex and that heat warning that we were talking about, 32. It will cool down in the evenings. Monday, it will be 12 degrees by the evening, but tomorrow you'll have that rain, so make sure you have an umbrella handy with you. The heat warning is still in effect. As you head into Monday and Tuesday, you're going to have a little bit of that break and those dry conditions.
Thanks so much for that, Dahlia.
Thanks.
And when we come back, taco for your time. As the real estate market cools, we'll tell you how some Windsor realtors are bringing the heat after the break. Real estate agents have used a variety of incentives to sell homes, but one realtor in Windsor is counting on tantalizing the taste buds of prospective home buyers. Dale Molnar has more.
Well, we got 3 bedrooms, 1 bath in this one here.
Daniel Grenier is selling this house on Lincoln Road in Windsor for about $500,000. But his sister, the realtor, has decided to add something extra to spice up the deal. A $100 gift certificate for free tacos.
I mean, there's a lot of things always going around on social media, right? But I like having different ideas out there. I like being creative, and how else are you going to bring people in?
Well, I thought houses were selling like hotcakes, not tacos.
They were, absolutely. The market's shifting a little bit, right? Things are slowing down, and what better way to bring things in?
It's really about getting as many people into our properties as much as possible. Everybody loves tacos at the same time. So it's a little bit of a, guys, come on in. If you do buy this property, we'll give you free tacos for sure.
Deneau says she would have used the marketing idea even when the market was hotter, but she isn't the first one to think of this. Others have done it in the U.S., but Deneau says she had the idea independently.
I got to tell you, we see so many things on the internet that I'm sure that I've seen something at some point, and that's probably why it came to mind.
The house just went up on the market, so there haven't been any bites yet, but the trick just might work. What do you think of this marketing ploy? Would this help you decide to buy a house?
To be honest, we looked at it yesterday, so perhaps. I like tacos.
Free tacos to buy a house. Does that make you buy a house?
Yes, absolutely it would.
Yeah? You eat your tacos a lot, huh?
Oh, they're very good, yes.
Deneau isn't sure where she's going to source the tacos at this point, but she says she's going to look for local restaurants to help out. And she says in future she has some more food-related marketing ideas. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
A BC man has built a to-scale replica of the hotel where he's worked for almost 2 decades. The structure is made entirely of Lego, and it's turning heads in the lobby of the Chateau Victoria. Glenn Waddingham, a bellman, started working on the structure in late 2020 and finished last month. He spent more than 500 hours working on his masterpiece, which includes around 62,000 pieces of Lego. And it also includes replicas of some of the hotel's employees and guests. And it also includes a replica stop sign, which, like the real McCoy, topples over easily. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. That's where you can find the latest on the inquest into the death of Delilah Blair at the Southwest Detention Center. Also, the latest reactions to the Roe v. Wade ruling. We're also on social media as well. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.